Let's be honest. Pain is not something you'd ever send an invitation to. It shows up unannounced, barges through the door, throws your neatly arranged life into chaos, and refuses to leave when asked politely. It doesn't care if you have plans. It doesn't care if you've already suffered enough. And it certainly doesn't care about your sense of fairness. But here's the thing. Pain knows you better than anyone else ever will. It sees the cracks in your armor. It knows what you're avoiding. It whispers truths you've been too scared to say out loud. Most of us try to outrun it through distraction, denial, or indulgence. But those who stop running, those who turn around and face it, they discover something rare. They discover that pain isn't just a punishment. It's a message, a mentor, a mirror. The ancient Stoics understood this long before therapy trends and mindfulness apps became a thing. They knew that pain, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, could be the single most transformative force in a human life. But only if you let it be. If you're distressed by anything external, wrote Marcus Aurelius, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. In other words, pain doesn't just happen to us. It reveals us. It strips away the illusions, the ego, the noise, and brings us face to face with who we really are. But most of us never make it that far. We label pain as the enemy, not realizing that sometimes our greatest enemy is actually our best ally in disguise. That tight knot in your chest after heartbreak, that crushing defeat that shattered your ego, that moment you felt completely lost, alone, uncertain, all of those are signposts pointing towards something real, something honest, something necessary. Think about the pivotal moments in your life, not the easy ones, the hard ones. The ones that cracked you open, pulled the rug out, and left you breathless. Aren't those the moments that changed you the most? That taught you the most? That forced you to grow in ways you never could have imagined? No one likes the process, but the outcome, the insight, the resilience, that's priceless. Pain, when faced directly, becomes a kind of inner fire. It burns away the superficial. It tests your values. It challenges your beliefs. It asks, what do you really stand for? What are you made of? And most importantly, what are you willing to learn from this? You can run. You can numb. You can hide. But eventually, life will bring you right back to the classroom. The teacher will still be waiting. And the lesson will still need to be learned at SO if you're going through something right now. Some quiet ache or loud heartbreak, pause. Take a breath and listen closely. There's wisdom hidden inside that wound, a truth that only pain can teach you. And if you're brave enough to let it, pain might just show you the way to your truest self. The Stoics didn't see life as a vacation. They saw it as a training ground. To them, the world wasn't here to keep you comfortable. It was here to shape you, like fire tempers steel, or like a sculptor chips away at stone to reveal something stronger, cleaner, more purposeful underneath. And pain? Pain was the personal trainer no one asked for, but everyone needed. One of the key Stoic practices was called premeditatio malorum, which means the premeditation of evils. It sounds dark, but it was actually liberating. The idea was simple. Imagine the worst. Picture loss. Picture failure. Picture pain, real, visceral, soul-rattling pain. And then realize, I can survive this. I can prepare for this. I can train for this. This wasn't masochism. It was clarity. See, the Stoics believed that emotional suffering often came not from the events themselves, but from our shock at their arrival. When something bad happens and we say, I never expected this, we're not just hurting, we're stunned. But if you've trained your mind, if you've visualized challenge, if you've built a philosophical muscle, then pain doesn't feel like betrayal. It feels like the workout you knew was coming. As Epictetus said, difficulties show men what they are. That's a hell of a line, isn't it? Think about it like this. If life is a kind of gym, then pain is resistance training. The weight doesn't care if you want to lift it. The burn doesn't ask for your permission. But every rep, every heartbreak, every rejection, every failure is building something in you. Grit, discipline, patience, perspective. But only if you show up. Only if you lift. Most people never do. They feel the pain and they tap out. Or they blame life. Or they turn bitter. But the Stoics? They turned inward. They asked, what is this moment trying to teach me? How can I train with this pain instead of just suffering through it? That shift from victim to student is everything. Let's get practical for a second. Imagine someone loses their job. They feel devastated, anxious, maybe even humiliated. The average reaction? Blame the company. Blame the economy. Blame yourself. Spiral. But the Stoic approach? Accept what's outside of your control. Own what's within it. Ask, what have I been avoiding? What skills do I need to sharpen? What deeper lesson is hidden in this disruption? Now, this isn't toxic positivity. The Stoics weren't saying, look on the bright side. They were saying, look directly into the fire and grow stronger because of it. There's a line from Seneca that hits hard. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. What he meant was, yes, life is painful, but our minds make it worse. We replay, exaggerate, catastrophize. We turn a cut into an amputation. But a Stoic mind? It pauses. It watches. It breathes. It lets the pain come and then chooses how to meet it. Pain is inevitable. That's just part of being alive. But suffering, unnecessary suffering, that's often optional. And the way we reduce that suffering is through philosophical training. Pain becomes your teacher when you stop resenting it. Pain becomes your ally when you stop fighting it. Pain becomes your breakthrough when you lean in and ask, what now? What's next? We don't choose what life throws at us, but we do choose how we interpret it and how we respond. And when you start to see pain not as punishment, but as training, you stop fearing it. You start growing from it. You become what the Stoics always admired. Not a man or woman untouched by hardship, but one transformed by it. Let's tell the truth most people avoid. A lot of what we care about is just noise. Status, likes, deadlines, appearances, the opinions of people we wouldn't even call in a crisis. It's not that these things are evil. They're just not real. Not in the deep, unshakable sense. They're distractions dressed up as priorities. And you know what cuts through all that fluff like a blade? Pain. Nothing focuses the human mind quite like suffering. When you're hurting, really hurting, you stop caring about the surface-level stuff. The illusions fall away. The ego gets quiet. You're not worried about impressing people or checking boxes. You're just trying to breathe, trying to understand, trying to find some kind of anchor in the storm. Pain forces you to confront this life and yourself in a way comfort never could. Marcus Aurelius, riding from the battlefield while dealing with war, loss, betrayal, and illness, once said, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." That sounds grim, but it's not. It's a wake-up call. The Stoics didn't write about death or loss or suffering to depress themselves. They did it to sharpen their focus, to cut through the bullshit, to live with intention. Because when you realize how fragile and temporary everything is, you stop wasting time on things that don't matter. And that's one of the strange gifts of pain. It strips life down to the essentials. When your heart is broken, you realize what real love is and what it isn't. When you're sick, you realize how much you took your body for granted and how precious time really is. When you lose someone, you realize how shallow most of your daily worries have been and how deep real connection runs. That kind of clarity doesn't come from podcasts or self-help books. It comes from experience, and often it comes from pain. Pain reveals your true priorities, your real values, the people who show up for you when everything else falls apart. It humbles you. It quiets the noise. It shows you what you can live without and what you absolutely can't. And yes, it hurts. Of course it hurts. But within that hurt is a deep, often uncomfortable truth. And the Stoics were obsessed with truth. They believed that virtue, character, and peace could only be built on reality, not fantasy. And pain, more than almost anything else in life, reveals reality. It teaches you who you are when everything else is taken away, when the job is gone, when the reputation is ruined, when the relationship ends. What's left? That's the real you. That's the foundation. And that's where true clarity begins. Most of us spend our lives building castles in the sky, goals, identities, routines. Then something painful happens, and it all comes crashing down. But if we're paying attention, we realize maybe that crash was necessary. Maybe those walls were never real. Maybe we were living on autopilot. And maybe, just maybe, pain was the only thing strong enough to shake us awake. Seneca once wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Pain polishes us, not by making life easier, but by making what matters more obvious. You may lose things during painful times, but what you gain, the clarity, the insight, the deeper sense of self, that's something no comfort zone could ever give you. So the next time you're hurting, ask yourself, what illusion is this pain destroying? What truth is it revealing? There's a difference between toughness and resilience. Toughness looks good on the outside. It's grit your teeth, don't let them see you cry energy. It's chest puffing, jaw clenching, pretend it doesn't hurt bravado. But resilience? That's different. Resilience is soft-spoken. It doesn't announce itself. It just keeps going. It bends without breaking. It bleeds, then bandages. It falls down 7 times and gets up 8, but not with a roar. With a quiet breath, a nod to reality, and the determination to try again. And it's almost always built in pain. The Stoics understood that suffering was not an interruption of life. It was life. The setbacks, the losses, the betrayals, the inner turmoil, all of it was part of the curriculum. If you wanted to be strong, not physically, but morally, spiritually, philosophically, then you had to go through the fire. Not around it, through it. The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable, wrote Seneca. But a wise man meets the adversity face to face and does not suffer in imagination. Stoic resilience isn't about denying pain. It's about meeting it fully, accepting it, examining it, learning from it, and growing through it. And that kind of strength doesn't develop overnight. It's forged slowly through repetition, just like a muscle, just like a callus. You don't become resilient because you read a quote. You become resilient because life tested you, and you stayed in the game. Think about your own life. Think about the hardest thing you've endured so far. At the time, it probably felt like it would crush you. Maybe it nearly did, but you're still here. And maybe you're even grateful for it now. Not for the pain itself, but for what it taught you, for how it shaped you, for what it awakened in you. That's resilience. It's the ability to return to yourself when the world shakes you loose. The ability to hold your ground without needing applause. The ability to say, this is hard, but I am harder. That's not ego. That's inner strength. That's self-trust. And self-trust is built through surviving things you once thought you couldn't. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled Rome during plagues, wars, and personal tragedies, didn't just write philosophy. He lived it. His journal, now called Meditations, is full of moments where he talks to himself like a coach, reminding himself not to complain, not to crumble, not to surrender to fear. He didn't say, I've got this all figured out. He said, this hurts. This is messy, but I will meet this moment with virtue. Pain, if you let it, will train you to become that kind of person. The kind who doesn't need everything to go right in order to stay grounded. The kind who can walk through chaos and not become chaotic. The kind who can suffer without becoming bitter. Who can fail without losing their dignity. Who can hurt deeply and still choose kindness. That is resilience. And pain is the whetstone that sharpens it. You don't build resilience by avoiding the hard stuff. You build it by facing it. Not all at once. Not perfectly, but steadily. Again and again. Until what once broke you becomes the very reason you can now carry others. So if you're hurting right now, know this, the strength you're looking for, it's not somewhere out there. It's already inside you. Pain isn't blocking the way. It is the way. And each time you walk through it, you come out more grounded, more courageous, and more free. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough credit. Pain doesn't just make you stronger. It makes you kinder. Yeah, that's not the first thing people associate with Stoicism. Most imagine some stone-faced philosopher staring into the void, unaffected, untouchable. But real Stoicism, the kind that Marcus Aurelius Epictetus and Seneca lived, it's deeply human, deeply relational. It's about integrity, yes, but also about empathy. Because when you've suffered, when you've been cracked open by life, something unexpected happens. You start to see other people's pain more clearly too. You notice the sadness behind someone's smile. You recognize the weight behind someone's silence. You stop judging so quickly. You start listening more. And why? Because you've been there. Maybe not in the same exact way, but in the trenches of pain, you picked up something priceless: understanding. The Stoics were clear on this. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself in meditations that he must be patient with others, not because they deserved it, but because he could understand them. He could see that every person, even the annoying or cruel ones, were suffering in some way. And if he remembered that, he could stay calm. He could stay kind. Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, Marcus wrote, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? That's not cold. That's compassion sharpened by pain. Here's the paradox most people miss. Pain doesn't just break you, it also opens you. When your heart breaks, it grows back with more room in it. When you've been hurt and you truly process that hurt, you become less likely to pass it on to someone else. You don't just become stronger, you become gentler. The kind of gentleness that doesn't flinch when someone else is in pain. The kind that can sit with discomfort. The kind that knows how to say, me too. We all know people who have gone through hell and come out either angry or wise. What's the difference? One allowed their pain to make them bitter. The other let it make them better. One used pain as an excuse to shut down. The other used it as a bridge to deeper connection. That's the kind of compassion Stoicism quietly cultivates. Not the performative, feel-good kind, but the type that understands human fragility, that sees others not as enemies or obstacles, but as fellow travelers in a difficult, beautiful, chaotic world. When you understand your own suffering, not just intellectually, but viscerally, you're less quick to react and more ready to understand. You don't need to dominate a conversation. You're not so eager to be right. You could just be there, present, aware, and supportive. That's powerful, and it's rare, because most people run from pain. They bury it, they numb it, and in doing so, they bury their empathy with it. But if you face pain, if you learn from it, it becomes a source of not just strength, but tenderness. And that's a trait the world desperately needs more of. Seneca, for all his wealth and political clout, often wrote about the suffering of others with genuine care. He believed that philosophy wasn't just about personal endurance. It was about service, about being able to show up for others because you've done the work in yourself. That's the quiet power of pain. It teaches you how to show up for others without needing to fix, impress, or preach. Just to be there, to see, to witness, to understand. So if you've been through something, really been through it, don't hide that part of you. Don't rush to cover the scars. Those scars are what make you credible. They are what make you trustworthy. They are what connect you to the rest of us. Pain, if you let it, will not just sharpen your edges, it will soften your heart. And in a world that is often hard, loud, and quick to judge, that softness is revolutionary. Here's one of life's most brutal truths. You're not in control. Not in the way you wish you were. You could try to predict, prepare, overthink, and strategize your way through life. And sometimes it works. You get a few wins. Things go your way for a while. But then something happens. The relationship ends. The job disappears. The diagnosis lands. The betrayal hits. The plans fall apart. And suddenly, you're face to face with the terrifying realization you were never really in control to begin with. And that is where pain enters the chat. Not just physical pain, not even just emotional pain, existential pain. The pain of things not going the way you thought they would. The pain of realizing life has its own plans, and it didn't ask for your opinion. The Stoics didn't just acknowledge this reality. They built their entire philosophy around it. At the heart of Stoicism is one of its most repeated principles: control what you can. Let go of what you can't. Sounds simple. It's not, because we're wired to cling. to outcomes, to identities, to people, to promises. We want things to last. We need things to go a certain way. And when they don't, we panic. We grieve. We resist. We grasp tighter. And that resistance? That's often what creates the most suffering. But pain has a way of forcing your hands open. When things fall apart, when your grip is ripped away, you're left with a choice. Either keep clutching at what's already gone, or breathe and let go. The Stoics weren't cold about this. They knew grief. They knew heartbreak. Marcus Aurelius lost children. Epictetus was born a slave. Seneca lived under the constant threat of execution. They didn't pretend that detachment was easy. They just knew it was necessary. Because the alternative is to suffer twice. Once when life disappoints you, and again when you refuse to accept it. Here's the Stoic insight. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means making peace. It means understanding the limits of your control and reclaiming your power within those limits. You don't control the storm. You do control how you sail. You don't control who stays in your life. You do control the integrity with which you love. You don't control the outcome. You do control the effort. And that's not weakness. That's wisdom. Think about how much energy we waste trying to force life into our blueprint. How much suffering we create by refusing to let things be what they are. How many sleepless nights are spent wishing the past had played out differently, as if we could rewrite it by replaying it in our heads. But pain teaches you something the ego resists. Everything is borrowed. Nothing is promised. The Stoics didn't just think this in theory, they practiced it daily. Epictetus would remind himself, "You are a character in a play. Whatever part is assigned, play it well." That doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you stop fighting what already is and start responding to it with dignity. And maybe the hardest thing to let go of? The story. The story you told yourself about how it was supposed to be, who you were supposed to become, how they were supposed to treat you, what you were supposed to achieve by now. Pain shatters that story. But in its place, if you let it, is something far more honest, more flexible, more alive. Letting go isn't passive. It's courageous. It's the moment you stop arguing with reality and start dancing with it. Even if you've forgotten the steps, even if the rhythm has changed, even if it hurts, because clinging is a form of control. But surrender? Surrender is a form of strength. So when pain knocks the wind out of you, when life doesn't go to plan, when you're staring at the ruins of what used to be, ask yourself, "What am I still holding on to that no longer serves me?" And then, slowly, gently start releasing. Not because it's easy, but because peace is waiting on the other side. Let's be honest. You don't really know who you are until the storm hits. It's easy to play the part when things are good. When life goes your way, when people like you, when plans work out. Sure, you can be yourself. But who are you when the lights go out? When the person leaves? When the dream dies? When you're left standing in the middle of the wreckage with no map, no answers, and no guarantees? That's when your real self steps forward. Pain has a strange way of burning away everything that's not essential. And in that fire, in that raw and disorienting space, something incredibly rare happens. You meet you. Not the version of you that performs for others. Not the version that's built on praise or titles or routines, but the core. The Stoics knew this better than most. Epictetus famously said, "Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself." Pain doesn't create weakness or strength. It exposes what's already within. It shows you what you actually believe, not what you say you believe. You can talk all day about patience until you're forced to wait. You can preach about forgiveness until someone betrays you. You can quote every Stoic line about detachment until life rips something precious from your hands. And in those moments, your identity is tested, but also refined, because pain is more than just a test. It's a sculptor. It chips away the excess, the arrogance, the illusions. It strips you bare and then asks, "Who are you now?" If you pay attention, pain offers you a chance to become the kind of person you admire, not in theory, but in reality. The kind of person who's steady in the storm, who keeps their word, who feels deeply but still acts with purpose, who doesn't collapse under pressure but rises slowly, shakily, but rises. That's character. And character is built, not born. It's forged through choice, especially in pain. Think about it like this. You're writing your story. Every experience, every setback, every wound becomes a sentence. Maybe even a whole chapter. You don't get to control the plot twists, but you do get to choose the voice you write with, the tone, the courage, the resilience, the honesty. And over time, those choices become you. This is why the Stoics placed so much value on virtue, courage, temperance, wisdom, justice. Not because they're impressive, but because they're the only things you can truly own when everything else is taken from you. Your job can go. Your reputation can vanish. Your body can fail. Your heart can break. But your character? That's yours. And it's built moment by moment, especially when it hurts. So when life pushes you to your knees, when you're tempted to numb out or give up or lash out, pause. Because this moment, this pain, this mess you're in, it's not just suffering, that it's a shaping, a carving, a transformation. You don't have to like it. But if you let it, it will make you real. It will make you true. It will make you whole in a way that comfort never could. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, you'll look back and realize the person I become, I met them in the fire. At some point, when the fire dies down, the grief softens and the dust settles, you stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? And that's when you realize pain was never here to punish you. It was here to teach you, to grow you, to wake you up, not in a romantic, flowery way, in a quiet, grounded, life-altering way. Because wisdom doesn't arrive like lightning. It shows up slowly, often carrying the scent of ash. And if you've lived through real pain, the kind that strips your ego and snaps your illusions, then you know what I'm talking about. It's not the pain itself that's wise. It's what it leaves behind. The perspective, the patience, the sharp eye for what matters and what doesn't. After enough loss, you stop wasting time on shallow things. After enough disappointment, you become careful with your expectations. Not cynical, just real. And after enough heartbreak, you don't close off, you just love with more awareness. With eyes open. Not because you're jaded, but because you've learned what love actually costs and why it's still worth it. The Stoics saw pain as raw material, something to shape, to use. Marcus Aurelius didn't pray for the world to be gentle. He prayed for strength to meet it as it was. Seneca wrote not about avoiding misfortune, but about how to carry it with dignity. Epictetus, who had every reason to be bitter, taught that we're disturbed not by events, but by our judgment of them. That's not detachment, that's clarity. And that clarity is what turns pain into philosophy. Not the kind of philosophy that sits in a book, but the kind you live. The kind you practice at 2 a.m. when your thoughts won't stop racing. The kind you lean on when life makes no sense. Wisdom, real wisdom, isn't cleverness. It's not found in big words or perfect quotes. It's quiet, often invisible. It shows up in how you treat people when you're tired, in how you hold your tongue when you're angry, in how you choose to keep going when quitting would be easier. That kind of wisdom almost always comes from pain, because pain forces reflection. It makes you slow down and ask the hard questions. It humbles you, breaks your pride. And if you're honest, brutally honest, it teaches you to stop bullshitting yourself. There's no shortcut to that kind of insight. No book, no podcast, no guru can hand it to you. You earn it. In silence, in loneliness, in failure, in grief. It builds in the background while you're trying to hold it together. It becomes part of your posture, your eyes, your words. And eventually, without realizing it, you become the kind of person other people turn to. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've lived through the questions. So, is pain your greatest teacher? It can be, but only if you let it. Only if you sit with it instead of running. Only if you ask what it's trying to show you instead of shutting it out. And only if you're willing to change because of it, not just cope, but grow. That's what Stoicism offers. Not a way to escape pain, but a way to meet it with strength, clarity, compassion, and purpose. Not to become invincible, but to become real. And if you do that, if you let pain teach you, it will shape not just how you survive, but how you live. With more depth, more grace, more presence. You won't be perfect. You won't be untouched. But you'll be awake. You'll be wise. And that, in the end, is what makes it all worth it.